welcome back to Keep Smiling Adventures, and I put a post out that I'm going to do a Q&A. So I've got your comments all here and we're going to do a Q&A. So I'm just going to say, I'm not going to start with saying everyone's name because I'll only butcher it, as I always do with names. So let's start with the first question. I did the South Downs Way over 3 days in the summer. Well done, because that's always a brutal route. Riding home as I live in Eastbourne. Loved it, and now looking for the next challenge with not too crazy daily mileage. What route would you recommend next? Okay, well, if you're close to there, you could try the North Downs Way, probably a bit shorter, much easier than the South Downs Way, but it's just like a really fun route. It's kind of the opposite of the South Downs Way, where the South Downs Way has these beautiful views and it's very steep and it's very up and down. The North Downs Way is still has some nice views every now and again, but you're normally through like trees and stuff, and it's kind of single track and a bit more flowy. It's just like a really fun route. Also, another route I'd probably recommend is to head to the Yorkshire Dales and do the Yorkshire Dales 300 kilometers, that is. Good weather when you do that route. It's a magical route. It is a little bit on the rough side, but I think if you can manage the South Downs Way, it's pretty similar, maybe a little bit rougher in parts, but it's just like a fun route to explore the Yorkshire Dales. That's one of my favourite routes. If you wanted to do a shorter one, but you wanted to maybe head to Wales, maybe the Barebones Bash is a good one. There's a few different routes to them though. They're my favourites. I think head to the North Downs Way if you like wooded single track, and if you do it in bluebell season, it's really, really nice because, well, bluebells and single track, and there's lots of good camping because it's all wooded. There's lots of woodlands you ride through. Yeah, they'd be my suggestions. I also have a few videos on the second channel, Keep Smiling Adventures, where I've done like my best beginner routes, my favourite routes I wouldn't ride again. So make sure you go check out more Keep Smiling Adventures. Thanks for the question. What additional clothing do you take? All right, Leaf. What additional clothing do you take on your trips? Second bike shorts, change of clothes for the trip home. So I take what I'm wearing, obviously, and then normally two more bib shorts, 2 more t-shirts, maybe 3 in the winter. So, and I normally will only I'll maybe change into one of them, like if I'm sleeping, or maybe if I need to change if it gets wet. But yeah, I try and also keep one set of clean clothes for the journey home, because I do normally go on the train. I probably don't smell the best, so clean clothes can help with that a bit. Next question, yes, the crash into a boulder. So if you're not aware, I crashed, fell off the bike, landed on a boulder, broke 2 ribs and had a 5 centimeter cut on my liver. And the question is, how are you feeling after your crash? Many thanks for your films. I'm mostly better. I won't say I don't have pain. I have like discomfort. I feel like where I got hit and it kind of went underneath my ribs and like into them. I feel like I have maybe a bit of like damage to the muscles here. So every now and again, if I'm sat for too long, my body just feels like it's sort of falling into that side. It doesn't really hurt or anything. It's just like a discomfort. I can tell that I've landed on a boulder. And yeah, the ribs feel mostly fine. If I'm sleeping on them, I sometimes can feel again a bit of discomfort, like it's not quite as strong as it once was. Not pain, just discomfort. The funny thing is, when I'm cycling, I have no problem. I don't feel any pain or any discomfort. It's actually when I'm editing the videos, when I'm sat down for a long time just in front of a screen, that's when my body starts feeling a bit like, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable and stiff. But yeah, thanks for asking. I'm mostly better. Next question is, I'd love to see some selection of sleep spots, lots of different examples, especially in the busy south. But the question, okay, I'll answer that one first. So yeah, I have been thinking about doing a video. To be honest, it'd probably be like a vloggy video where I just go out, and it'll probably be on the second channel because it would just be, I don't know, I don't think it would be main channel worthy. But maybe I'll go out and I will just explain if I think something is a good camp spot, why I would set up in that place or I wouldn't set up in that place in particular. So yeah, let me know if that's something would interest you, because I have been thinking about doing more of these little like videos on the second channel for informative videos more on the second channel. But the question, plans for overseas, e.g. London to Paris, the French border to Switzerland. Yeah, I would like to definitely do some abroad trips like over there. And I probably wouldn't go from London to Paris, to be honest. I'd probably just go from Bournemouth to Paris, because the ferry is really close to me from Bournemouth. And my brother spends quite a lot of time in Paris because his girlfriend's there, so maybe when he's over in Paris one day, I'll just like cycle over and see him. I don't know. But the other side of doing trips that are abroad or like further afield, it's the financial cost of doing them, and are they going to bring back in that revenue? Some videos they might do well, some videos it's quite hard to like judge what it's going to do. So oftentimes I need to make more than one video, so I need to go and do one trip onto another trip, so it has to sort of like jump onto different ones to make the most of all the travel costs, really. The age-old question: titanium, steel, carbon or aluminium, and why? If I was only going to build a bike purely for bikepacking, and I was only going to use it for bikepacking, it would definitely be titanium. And not for the reasons that you might think, not because it's as strong as steel but lighter normally. When you're putting bags on bikes, the paint just gets absolutely destroyed. And titanium just doesn't do that. It's just really nice, it doesn't rust. My bomb track bike is just like destroyed. The paint is just like gone pretty much. It's down to the raw steel, and then that raw steel starts rusting and he's completely respraying and everything. So titanium for sure. I've not seen a good old Ginsters in any of your videos in a long time. Have you gone off the legendary brand? Did you have a bad tikka slice or something? I do still eat them occasionally, of course, but I often just cut like me eating stuff out of videos, or I just don't film it now because it's just kind of boring. I'm not really interested in food. I don't think it really adds that much to the video. Sometimes I'll add it, but most of the time I don't. And also, I definitely eat a lot less of them because, well, inflation has really hit the Ginsters. I used to buy them for like £1, £1.10, £1.50 was like the max I would go. And now you don't get them really unless they're like £2.50, £3.50, especially in little co-ops and stuff, which is where I find myself normally stocking up on supplies. They have been hit hard. They're often like £3.50 in co-op. And you know, that gets expensive for what it is. They were worth £1.50, £1, but come on, £3.50, £4. I might as well cycle to Cornwall and get a real one. Do you really prefer flat bar review better than drops? So I am going to do an update video of how I'm getting on with the flat bar gravel bike now, but I will say I actually really like having it as a flat bar bike now. It's just really fun to ride, and because I use that bike only for bikepacking, it means it's way more, I can take on a lot of different routes with it now, whereas I would normally opt for the bomb track. But I probably wouldn't have gone flat bar if I was going to use that bike as an everyday bike, riding to work, riding to the shops, whatever, because you know, drop bars are pretty good when you want to, like, you know, ride far and fast. But for just bikepacking, it's working really, really well. It gives me, for example, I would not have dreamed to even bother taking on the Highland Trail 550, even though I did bail, without on drop bars. Like, I just wouldn't have. But because it had flat bars, I was open to taking it. Now, I wasn't planning to take it. I was planning to take the bomb track anyway, but for some reason my rear wheel has just decided that the spokes want to pull through the rim and it's broken. So, and I didn't notice that until about a day or two before, when I was checking over the bike. I was going to go pack it up and I was like, oh, that's broken. And I had already booked all the trains. So I was like, well, okay, I'll do it on the gravel bike. But if I was still at it as a drop bar bike, no way would I have even considered it. Ever thought of doing one of the big bikepacking races or just doing the route solo. Would love to see the Tour Divide or the Transcontinental. Yeah, I mean, I would like to do the Tour Divide, I think. However, probably not in like one of their races, because I want to make a good video, and if I'm just racing, I don't know, I can't stop constantly to make a good video, and yeah, it just wouldn't be that fun. However, the problem is with doing these trips is they just cost a lot of money to go and make, and it's at the point where my channel is right now, it's just not in a position where it would necessarily be financially viable to go all that way, pay all this cost to get there, make sure I've got all the camera gear, make sure the bike's all that cost to make the video. I don't think it would make money, and it would just cost me a lot of money. But unfortunately right now the channel, it has to grow a bit more, probably double what it is now, honestly, to be able to do them rides. So at the moment this is like my job, so it has to make financial sense. It's not quite as free as, oh, I just want to do that and I'm going to take some time off work to do it, because I've got to, you know, pay all that money out to potentially make some money back. But definitely in the future, if the channel can grow a bit more, make me a little bit more money, then I will 100% do them rides. It's not because I don't want to ride them. Adventures are pretty epic, yet completion of each rarely seems in doubt. Didn't watch the Highland Trail 550 then. It would be interesting to know what level of fitness you feel you need for multi-day bikepacking adventures. Do you ever do stuff like FTP tests, or do you feel there's no need or desire? There's definitely no desire to be doing FTP test. Does anyone desire to do FTP tests? It's like doing the bleep test at school. Do we desire to do that? No. Don't do any training or anything like that. I've always been my training is just time on the bike. So I guess every time I go on a bikepacking trip or anytime I ride my bike, that is training. And I've been riding bikes for a long, long time, and I've always done it very consistently. I've had times where I didn't ride for a month or two there, but a lot of the times I'm riding most days. I actually ride less now that I'm doing it on YouTube than I have ever done. However, because I've had that consistency over the years, I found that I can get away with just, spending a couple of weeks off a bike and then going out and riding. I'll always feel it like, I haven't ridden for a couple of weeks. It feels it in my legs. You're blasting them lungs open again. But normally after the second or third day of riding, I feel like, I'm back to normal again. I believe a lot of cycling or doing anything hard is like 30% body, and then the rest is just mind over matter. I've always had that kind of outlook on cycling. When I first ever got like a road bike, I was working like 12-hour days in the kitchen, and I was like, okay, well, I can go and ride 100 miles and it takes 5 to 6 hours, let's say. So if I do 5 to 6 hours to do 100 miles, and then I do 5 to 6 hours to do 200 miles, then all I've really done is a work day, but on a bike. And if I can do 12 hours in the kitchen, I can ride 200 miles on a bike. So actually, when you see me riding these bikepacking routes, I'm riding a lot less mileage than what I would do if I wasn't filming it, for sure. Which is quite nice, because it's naturally made me slow down and appreciate what I'm doing a bit more when I'm out there. But no FTP tests, no thank you. Question about the Highland Trail 550. Do you regret not cracking on with the Highland Trail 550, given it was always going to be a tough route? Do you think route planners should lay off the extended hiker bike, given we really are in it to ride our bikes? Yes, they should get off the hiker bike. I don't mind a bit of hiker bike, There's always going to be a bit of hiker bike, but I don't believe there's anywhere in the UK that having to hike for like 3 hours that I did on the Highland Trail 550, and okay, it was dark and it was probably a bit slower because of that. So let's even just say, okay, it's 2 hours in the daylight. It's still not worth, that still wasn't worth hiking for 2 hours. I don't want to hike up, to then hike down, to then hike up, to then get one descent. It just seems pointless to me. And often a lot of routes I've found that you'll be riding something that's rideable and then you turn off onto something that's then not rideable. Sometimes obviously you just have to do that because that's like the right of way, especially in England and Wales. That's just the way the bridleway goes. But oftentimes you could just go a different way. And yeah, I don't want to be hiking for 3 hours. I think the Koriaki Pass, or however it's pronounced, is a great example of what is an acceptable hiker bike on a route, because although it's a challenge, right? If you're going up it over to Fort Augustus, so the way I did it with the Highland Trail 550, that is the harder way to go up it for sure. But it is mostly all rideable. You just get to the zigzags and that's the hard part. But if you hike the whole zigzag part, it takes what, 20 minutes, if that, to get all the way to the top. That's okay, because then you get a descent and it's not an hour, 2 hours, 3 hour long hiker bike. I just want to ride my bike. Basically, yes, I just want to ride my bike. But also on the other side of that question, I don't regret not cracking on with it, because it wasn't really because it was hard that I quit. I just generally just felt really bored. I don't know why, I just wasn't really in the mood. Hiker bike isn't necessarily hard, right? It's just hiking. I don't really want to hike. So it gets very boring and very tedious very quick, especially if it's very stop and start, ride a bit, get off, hike, get on a little bit, right? You know, it just gets a bit boring. So no, I don't regret doing it. Maybe I'll redo it at some point when the bomb track is fixed. But honestly, I'm not that fussed about it, because it just feels like it's just a long hiker bike for no reason. Can you do a behind the scenes type video, maybe showing how you get some of your shots? Do you script and plan each video ride out? Vids are great. I mean, I can't script before I go, because I don't know what's going to happen, and that's always a thing. Like, I never have an actual plan. I'll have like a rough time frame of how long it'll probably take me, but I don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes I might know the trails of a rhythm before, but I don't know how the ride is going to go. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know what's going to happen. The only thing I will say is I am constantly thinking about making the video. So when I putting a camera down to get a shot, I am thinking, okay, if I'm riding towards the camera, then the next shot can't be me riding towards the camera again. It has to be riding past the camera, or like a side shot, or it has to go to something else. So I am constantly thinking how everything will be together when I get back and edit it. And I try and just sort of remember what I'm feeling at that time so I can add it into the script. And that's sort of how I've been making the videos. But in terms of making a behind the scenes video, maybe I'll just, as I'm talking about this video, maybe I'll just show it, because it's really not that interesting. Because if I see something that I think will look good on camera, I'll film it. If I'm struggling up a hill, I'll film it. And then I'll just work out how that's gonna go together when I edit it. Hi Josh, what's your usual diet on a day of cycling? The comments under this one is Ginsters. Come on, you should know this. Ginsters pasty. And it's not always Ginsters, it's just whatever I can find. So I don't take a cooking stove or anything like that. I really can't be bothered. I have in the past. I took it on a really long tour for like 3 months, where I cycled from Calais to Seville, just following the coastline, no map, just a compass literally, just kept the sea on my right and just kept going. And I carried a stove and some food to cook. And you know what, every time I got into my camp, every night, I just went, I can't be bothered to cook. So I just find stuff at shops, you know, just sandwiches, pasties, Ginsters, whatever I can get really. I will say, I very rarely eat a big meal on a bikepacking trip. If I get, especially during the actual day, I'll only ever just keep constantly eating, whether that be salami, whether that be fruit, whether that be a pasty. I'll constantly eat small amounts, just constantly keep myself topped up, but I don't like to eat big meals when I'm cycling. Maybe at the end of the day, some days I will buy a bit of extra food and I'll eat that, but honestly, when I'm cycling, I'll just eat as little as possible. I'm one of these people that if you could make that pill that I'd never have to eat again, I would bite your hand off. Hey, next question. Given the many trips you've been on and extensive planning, what would your ultimate Land's End to John O'Groats route look like, and how would this differ from the GB Enduro route? Well, I don't know if the GB Enduro route's the same as the GB Divide route that I did. I really like the GB Divide route, and I do think it was better. And to start where I did in Land's End and start in John O'Groats, sorry, and end in Land's End. The only thing I might maybe change is the part where you kind of get between Edinburgh and Glasgow and you're sort of heading down towards Manchester. I would probably just join the second city divide, because if you've watched my videos, you'll know I really, really love that route. It's just like a great gravel route, and if I could just put that route into it, that would be probably make it a little bit better. However, I believe I've already cycled the ultimate Land's End to John O'Groats route, and that was when I did the coast of Britain, cycled clockwise back in 2000 and I think it was 16 or 17. I started in Bournemouth and I went clockwise around the entire British coast. So essentially when I got to Land's End, I went up the west coast of England, England, Wales and Scotland until I got to John O'Groats. That was my favourite and best ultimate Land's End to John O'Groats. You could bike pack anywhere in the world, where would that be, why there, and what's the route? So where I would love to just cycle in general, to be honest, is Nepal. I don't know a particular route. I think there is one on bikepacking.com around there, but I would just quite like to just get lost, just go and like not necessarily have a plan of where to ride there, but just go ride around, meet local people, just generally just be in that sort of magical wonderland of remoteness and mountains, and yeah, just I think around Nepal would be pretty cool. I would quite like to cycle from Bournemouth to Nepal. I think that would be the epic bikepacking trip that I would like to do. Seem to have a knack in finding named storms when you go out. Do you actually check the weather before you set off, or is it more that you've committed to do the ride? Days off work booked, the bike and yourself on the train, etc. Over those days, so there is not much point. I'm thinking in particular the Cairngorms loop, one where the weather was particularly awful, if I recall, upgraded to a red weather warning after being amber for quite a while. So yes, that is part of it, like pre-planning it. So I don't have to book time off work because YouTube right now is the job, but because it is my job, I can't just not make videos in the winter because the weather's going to be bad. Obviously, I try and avoid massive storms, that's anything that's going to be dangerous for me. But I'm also quite happy to ride in them conditions. I don't actually mind it too much. But also, yeah, there is that. I booked my bike on the train weeks or a couple weeks in advance, maybe a month. So I have to just go and do it, but also I just need to do it because that's how I get paid. But also the Cairngorms one, I think was in November, and I believe I rode a route before that. I might have even rode two routes before that. I don't know, maybe it was just one, I can't remember. But I remember riding to, I think it was to the Oldest Tree, and then I went on to the Cairngorms. And the Oldest Tree, that weather was beautiful and everything. And the way I sort of see it is, if you called your boss and said, I'm not coming in during the winter because it's cold, how would your boss actually respond to that? I have to do my work. Sometimes that means going out in a not as nice conditions as I would all like. And unfortunately, I really enjoy your videos. If I may ask, since the accident, have you started to be wary of going fast downhill when the going is less than, shall we say, smooth? It definitely took me a while, a few rides at least, after like getting on the bike for the first time, where I just felt incredibly stiff. I felt incredibly not relaxed on the bike. Like I would go over something that would be completely normal for me, and I would be like, ugh! And I just didn't trust that the bike was going to do what I knew it would do. So that it definitely took a bit of time, a few rides. I always err on the side of caution as much as possible. So I'm not normally flying down stuff that is above my riding abilities. I'm not a huge technical rider, so I'm quite happy to hike down trails if I find them just too sketchy. But also because I am bikepacking on my own, I always do take that approach anyway, because I just believe that if you're riding on your own, it's not the time to be pushing your limits. It's a time to just accept your limits and get on with it. But there's often things that I would ride if I was with somebody that I don't ride because I'm on my own. But yeah, it's definitely taken a few rides, and even now, like there's certain things that I'm just like riding down. I quite often I'll be riding down something, my brain will go, what if you fell here, Josh? And I'm like, don't think that. That's the worst thing you can think when you're flying down this hill, because you will crash if you start thinking that. But yeah, it definitely took a bit of time, and I'll definitely not forget the image of that boulder coming to my ribs. Okay, this is the last question. I thought I'd leave this one till last. Hi Josh, I asked last year if you would continue YouTube. You answered that you will give it a year. Fingers crossed for another year. Yeah, so when I made that video, which is about a year ago, and I said I'd give it a year, and then I got to work, and I started making the videos, and everything was going pretty good. I was getting ahead. I was going to be able to I'd committed to making a bikepacking video every other week, so every second Sunday. And that was the plan, and that was going well. It was going well, and the channel was doing well. And then obviously I had that crash, and I couldn't upload for like 7 weeks. I think it was probably 8 weeks actually. I took 7 weeks off the bike, maybe even more, I don't know, however long it was. The problem is, in that 7 weeks, because I wasn't uploading YouTube or whatever, like my views, the videos, just every video that was getting views just literally went nothing, not getting any views. And unfortunately, I'm in the game where views equal money, which equal I can put back into the channel to make more videos. So when that happened, it was like, okay. And then obviously I carried on, and it's been a really hard year with not like, some videos have done all right, some haven't, some I thought would do well, some haven't. It's been a very costly year with things breaking, not just bike stuff, camera stuff, me. So again, I am at this point where I want to say yes, I will continue, and I think I will always continue in some way, whereas even if I'm going back to working in like a full-time job, like a normal job, I will probably always make videos. When I take annual leave or whatnot, I will still make videos, and I've still got the second channel, which I can use footage that I've got to produce different videos that I like to make. However, I can't say yes or no. It's very uncertain for me right now what next year brings, because on one hand, I would like to potentially leave the UK, even just for a couple years, to just live abroad again, just for a couple years. And the way I would need to be able to do that is to be doing YouTube, because that would be my source of income. However, it's going to depend on a few circumstances. I'm hoping that I really want to, but it's been a tough year, and it's one of these questions where I ask myself, should I continue anymore, or should I just call it a day? I want to continue, obviously. I get to ride my bike. I just need to grow that channel a bit more, and honestly, I just need a bit of luck sometimes with some of the videos just to get pushed out, and that's not under my control sometimes. So I will say, I'll leave it here. We'll see. It's sort of leaving on a bit of a downer, but I'll just leave it as we shall see. Thank you for all the questions. Bit of a different video. I should have the video that I'm working on. The whole reason I did this video is because the video I'm currently working on, which is the ultimate guide to UK bikepacking, which has taken me a very long time. It's been a long time in the making. Is coming soon, and it might be the last video ever. I don't know. But until next time, keep smiling. Enjoy the adventure. Peace.
It's a beautiful world out there. Just don't pass on the dare. If you have the will and the motivation.